The impact of the changes to pensionable age is such as to severely penalise those who happen to be on the cusp of retirement and who had well-founded expectations of entering the next phase of their lives rather than being plunged back into a workforce for which many of them were ill-prepared and to which they could not reasonably be expected to adjust with no notice. But Mr. Opperman came up with a very reasonable suggestion to improve our situation on that, didn't he? We should all look for an apprenticeship. There are several groups all fighting for the justice we deserve. WASPI, Women Against State Pension Inequality, Back to 60, Shoulder to Shoulder, We Paid In, You Paid Out, 1950s Women of Wales, all doing what they can to raise awareness and persuade the government with various solutions to listen to us. During 2018, an internal dispute within WASPI erupted. Campaigning stalled. And biting at the bit, I left the group to form 1950s Women of Wales, which quickly grew in numbers, words spreading all over the borders, and the words "and beyond" were added. We have almost 2,000 members, including group leaders from around the UK, who in turn also serve thousands more affected women, and we work closely together to gain ground. Collectively, we're the biggest campaign in the UK this century. If we stick together on this, we can only grow stronger, gain more supporters, and win this war. We've been forced to travel far and wide, telling people ourselves of the travesty. And everywhere we go, we do indeed gain more supporters. Our first visit to Westminster was orderly and polite. It was 3 days after the Brexit referendum, and the press were there in their droves. 2,500 women arrived with banners and handbags, fully expecting to be viewed by the nation that evening on national television, in the hope that our support would grow. Upon my return, after such a long day, I sat with bated breath in front of the television and waiting and waiting and watching and waiting. By midnight, nothing had been aired, and after watching the breaking news of how badly the Brexit business was going to affect a Scottish bagpipe maker based in Pakistan, I gave up and went to bed. Our second visit was overwhelming, with over 7,000 women descending upon Westminster on Budget Day 2017, dressed this time as our suffragette sisters did over 100 years ago. Who would have thought that we would still be fighting for justice all these years later? Again, the press were there in their droves, and we stopped the budget broadcast because of the noise we made, with not just banners and handbags, but with drums, whistles, whatever we could use to make ourselves heard, including our very loud cross voices. But again, still no coverage on national news. During our third, fourth and fifth trips to Westminster, we marched past Buckingham Palace, causing havoc in our wake. We stopped the traffic outside Westminster for 2 hours. Fiona Bruce was forced to be late for her broadcast at 6 o'clock, but again, still no mention on national TV. In October 2018, the year I joined a group of campaigners outside Westminster and sat in the public gallery listening quietly as the Chancellor read out his autumn budget. We were surrounded by security and special branch detectives who had been tipped off about our presence. We had banners and t-shirts hidden in various places about our persons, and as the Chancellor sat down, out they came. we stood up and shouted at the top of our voices, "Shame on you." Firstly, the SNP began to clap, followed by the rest of the opposition parties. Then they stood up clapping and cheering. Some even filmed us as we continued for more than 5 minutes while the Deputy Speaker turned purple, shouting, "Order, order." The Conservative Party sat stone-faced. Well, most did, but I did detect 1 or 2 hard-fought smiles escaping from their depths. June 2019 saw the judicial review, when the Back to 60 group, headed by Joanna Walsh and supported by Jackie Jones, former Labour MEP, and represented by Michael Mansfield QC. I sat in the courtroom for 2 days and listened dumbfounded to Sir James Eady QC tell the court that yes, the government was aware that letters were not sent out to every woman affected. He also stated that government are not legally required to inform any member of the public of legislative changes which directly affect them. After the summing up, the judges left, having said they will take 2 to 3 weeks to deliberate their verdict. 4 months later, we gathered in the Senedd, fully expecting justice to be served. How could it not? Then the first text message began coming through from fellow campaigners. Case dismissed. The reason? One of them, historic discrimination towards men. There is now a growing number of supporters within Westminster who have taken the time to listen to us, but still we hit that cold, hard brick wall wherever we see a light at the end of every growing dark tunnel. The bill presented for reading in Parliament by our supporters in the APTG was continuously resubmitted and frustratingly withdrawn because of the position it was given on the agenda. Could this be because the government are worried that finally our message is hitting home? An appeal has been granted by the courts for the judicial review, which is now due to be heard on the 21st of July. We had planned what we hoped would be the biggest gathering in Westminster to date. We felt it was our final fling, so to speak. The appeal court has to give an immediate ruling. This is the day before Parliament was due to break up for the summer recess. Does anyone else wonder, coincidence or deliberate? But now we've been struck by coronavirus. Sadly, we have lost far more of our numbers, and the elderly in general have taken a massive hit. Care homes, hospital frontline workers, all include women in their 60s. Many have returned to work after waiting the extra 6 years to retire to answer the call to help, even though our government has turned their backs on them. Our illustrious government decided it was okay to send the virus into care homes, okay not to class the over 60s as vulnerable, as per World Health Organization recommendations, okay to help everyone in the country who has been hit financially by the effects of this dreadful virus. Everyone except the women born in the 1950s. Well, let me finish by sending this one message. We are not going away.